hi. Hello, boys, girls, theys, thems, and other. This is Kat. I am Kat. And welcome back to my channel. I don't know why that was so hard for my brain to connect. In this lovely video, we are going to be doing a review on the Scream 5, or Scream, the new Scream from 2022. This year, they call it Scream, but it is Scream 5. Let's be real, it is the 5th movie, but we are going to be doing a review and a short little side quest. I have tried to film this the past 3 weeks. Literally 3 times. This is the 4th time I've attempted to film this. The first time, I did a whole play-by-play of the movie, and it took 2 hours. I started filming at 10:30. I wasn't done until like 1 o'clock, and I tried to edit it down, and I couldn't. The second time, I just didn't like my energy. You could tell that I just wasn't into it. The third time, I talked too much. So this time, we're going to be doing this a little bit differently. I'm not going to do a play-by-play or anything like that. I am just going to talk about the movie, my thoughts and everything, my favorite characters, my favorite scenes, what I liked, what I didn't like, and kind of like what I kind of like wish the movie was and what I thought the movie was going to be, just stuff like that. But yeah, so we're doing this time. Also, another side quest to that side quest. If you hear like steam or sounding like cooking, it's because I'm heating up water for my matcha tomorrow, because I won't wake up early enough to make it. So that's what you're going to hear. You're probably going to hear the tea kettle sing in a minute, but yeah. So let's get started. Okay, Scream 5 is set 25 years after the very first movie. So it's set 25 years after the first Woodsboro murders perpetrated by Billy Loomis and Stu Macher. And it's said that the movie was supposed to be a commentary and satire on, I wrote it down because I couldn't remember. It's supposed to be satire on the trend of reboots and legacy movies, kind of like how Halloween or Star Wars, even how they're reboots or legacy movies. It's supposed to be also a commentary on the divide between elevated horror movies and just your regular run-of-the-mill slasher, kill, whodunit movies. Now, for those of you who don't know what elevated horror is, I had no idea what elevated horror is, but it's also called art house horror, where basically it's a subgenre of horror films and art films. They use atmosphere building, psychological character development, cinematic style, and philosophical themes to create more than just your straight run-of-the-mill jump scares. It's supposed to, like, as it's called, elevate the horror experience. Some movies that use elevated horror are like Psycho, Rosemary's Baby, The Shining, Under the Skin, movies like that. A lot of different countries actually use art house horror as a way of making their movies. Like a lot of Korean horror movies, a lot of Japanese, and a lot of Italian horror movies actually use art house horror to create a scary atmosphere. Some people do not like elevated horror. They think it's ridiculous. And some people love elevated horror. I live in the middle. I love some art house horror movies, and I love some regular, just run-of-the-mill gore slasher movies. It just depends on how I feel that day. But the movie is trying to create kind of a commentary on the difference between the two, but also the satire of the fact that a lot of movies have been creating these reboots of films for no reason, or a lot of TV shows even have been creating reboots. Like, for example, Charmed. Charmed was a great movie in the TV show in the 90s. It had Alyssa Milano and Shannon Doherty, and it had Holly Marie Combs, and it had Rose McGowan, and it was a beautiful show. And then for some reason they decided they need to reboot it with 3 new people. And there's no reason for that. I've never watched the new show, but there's no reason for it. But for some reason they decided to. And so this movie is trying to use that satire as the fact that it's kind of a big joke, which I love, that they kind of use that to kind of create a narrative, but they also kind of put it in your face that it's very self-aware of what it is. But that's okay. To get started, let's talk about the things that I liked about the movie. Now, my favorite character of the movie and the best part, well, not the best part, but my favorite character in the movie is Tara. I really liked Jenna Ortega as Tara, and I really liked her acting. I honestly wish that the movie focused more on Tara than Sam. Not that Melissa Barrera was a terrible actress and that I didn't like Sam's character, I just thought that Tara was better. I thought Jenna Ortega really actually made the movie what it was. She was the only character that I actually felt for and the only character that I wanted to survive, because when she shows fear or helplessness or anger or anything like that, she does it so well and you actually believe her. When she shows pain and agony, it really, you feel it for her, and that shows a really great actress. And I also love that Tara is the first person to survive in the entire series of the movie. She's the very first person to survive an opening scene, so it makes her extremely unique. And so it does make me wish that because of that, she was the focus of the movie. But I really liked Jenna Ortega. I think picking her to be part of the movie was a really brilliant choice to make. Another thing I liked about the movie is some of the kills I really actually liked. My favorite kills were Judy Hicks and Wes Hicks. I liked their kills. I think that the pointless character Olivia, I actually liked her death. I liked Amber's death as well. Some of the kills were actually really good. Some of the kills weren't that great, but I really liked the way that they did Judy and Wes's deaths. I thought that it was really brilliant. And I did like the way that they did Dewey's death as well. Dewey's death was actually really good, and it made you really feel for him. So some of the deaths were actually quite good in this movie. I liked the amount of Easter eggs and parallels from this movie to the other movies. For example, Red Right Hand by, oh gosh, I wrote it down. Where did I write it down? By Nick Cave. Wow. Whew. But Red Right Hand by Nick Cave was in the first film and the fourth film, and then it was in this film when Vince gets killed, which I really love because, one, it's one of my favorite songs, and also it's just kind of a really good homage to the other movies. I also liked, and I'm going to also talk about this in a second, but it's fine, when Tara hits Richie with the phone in the hospital, it's a parallel to when Billy hits Stu with the phone in the scene when Sydney gets away from them and Billy's pissed off and he throws the phone at Stu and Stu says, "You hit me with the fucking phone, you dick." Which also, side quest on that, is that scene wasn't actually planned. He wasn't supposed to hit Stu with the phone, but I guess the phone got stuck to Skeet Ulrich's hand, and so when he tossed it at Matthew Lillard, it wasn't supposed to happen, but Wes Craven liked the scene so much that he decided to keep it. Another parallel that I liked, and probably not a lot of people didn't notice, was that when Tara is talking on the phone with Ghostface and she's walking around the kitchen and she starts to play with the knives in the knife block, it's actually a parallel to when Casey was doing that. I believe there's also a sign in town in Woodsboro it says Elm Street, I believe. So I thought that was really cool. Sam and Tara's last name is actually a homage to John Carpenter, who created Halloween, which actually inspired the writers of Scream to write Scream. It was part of the inspiration, other than the murders from Gainesville, Florida, which I made a video about. But John Carpenter inspired Scream a lot, so Sam and Tara's last name is Carpenter. But what also is interesting about Sam's name is that in Halloween, Michael's therapist's name is Sam Loomis. So they named Sam to be a homage to Sam Loomis, but also Billy Loomis's name was inspired by Sam Loomis. So it's a great connection of being like, oh, Sam is Billy's daughter, so we're going to name her Sam because she's also a homage to Sam Loomis in Halloween, which I thought was really very awesome. There's actually quite a lot of Easter eggs in this movie and a lot of parallels that at first I didn't notice. Some of them I did notice while watching the movie, but I also looked them up. So if you're interested in all, there's so many like tributes to horror movies, like when Amber is burnt and she comes out running to kill them for one last time. That's actually a homage to Freddy Krueger. So if you're interested, you should definitely look them up. I find it very fun and really cool to see those parallels, because Scream has been doing that since the very beginning. Scream has had tributes and little Easter eggs in their movies from the very beginning. So if you go and watch them again, try to see if you can catch what those are. Another thing that I really liked is I've always loved the meta speeches in these movies, because every single movie has a meta speech. And I liked Mindy's meta movie speech because it's pointing out what the movie is, that it's satire, that it's a reboot. She mentions that people want something new, but not too new, but something that stays in the same vein as the old one, but not completely the same. That nobody wants like it's a requel, basically, that nobody wants a reboot because they're not going to watch it. Like, for example, like Star Wars, you know, like, she points out what this movie is and kind of puts it in your face without making it annoying. I also like that when Sam says that, so they're making me the star of their fucking fan fiction, Mindy is like, oh no. Like, yeah, they're making you the star, but like, you're the perfect villain. And she is the perfect villain because she's Billy's daughter. But it's a really good speech, and the actress that portrays Mindy, what's her name? I wrote it down. That portrays Mindy, I did not write it down. That is really terrible of me. But the way that she talks about it and expresses her interest and her excitement, she does it so well. It reminds me of Randy Meeks so much, and I think that's why it's such a good scene, because it takes the energy of Randy and Charlie and puts it into this movie. So I really liked her speech. Okay, now let's talk about the things that I didn't like about this movie. And fair warning, there are more things I didn't like than things that I did. Now, one of the things I really didn't like is the plot line altogether. I really wish that they didn't basically recycle what they've already done. I didn't like feeling like I watched the first movie all over again just with different people, because the whole point of a movie is, like, especially sequels, is to be new. Now, I know it's a requel, but when you read Wikipedia, it says that it's trying to be like a standalone movie, like a reboot, but it's also a direct sequel to the fourth one. So it's like, why did they decide to do the same plot? Like I hate the fact that they made Richie a killer, because we've already seen the boyfriend be the killer. We've seen that so many times in thriller movies and in TV shows. I don't need to see that again. The whole point that we're spending our money and we're excited to go see a movie is to see something new. So when I spend money to go see a movie that is exactly the same, it's kind of frustrating. I did not like the plot line at all. I also did not like the pacing of the movie. I thought the pacing was way too quick. There wasn't enough time to get to know the characters. There was no character building. So one of the benefits of character building is you get to know these characters, and then so it makes it so you get to feel for them. So you get to get worried when they die. You get to feel sad when they die. You want them to survive. But when I'm not given time to get to know a character and their backstory and who they are, then I don't care if they die. Like Sam, Melissa Barrera was fine, but I didn't care about her character because I didn't actually get to know her character. Sure, we learn that she's Billy's daughter and she takes antipsychotics, and we learn that she left, but we don't get to know who Sam actually is. So in order for me to feel for the fact that she is Billy's daughter, or for the fact that she has to go back to Woodsboro and that she's the reason for all of this, then how am I supposed to feel that if I don't get to know her? And also the characters, the group of friends. How am I supposed to be sad when they die if I'm not given enough time to care for her? It goes in, and this goes into the third thing that I don't like, which is the pointless characters. For example, Vince and Olivia are the most pointless characters in this entire movie. Genuinely, if they didn't exist in this movie, you wouldn't even notice. And one of the scenes I hate is when Vince gets killed, because you don't need that part of the movie. I didn't need to see Vince get killed for the movie to push forward. That scene did not move the movie forward at all. And Olivia was not a character that made the movie move forward at all. So, like, I feel like a lot of time could have been saved by removing Olivia and Vince altogether. Now, granted, the pacing could have been kind of terrible because the movie was being made in the middle of the height of the pandemic, which was September to November of 2020. So that could be why the pacing was kind of lacking. But at the same time, why are you putting characters in this film that don't matter? Like, genuinely, we didn't need Judy and Wes. We didn't. The only reason you added Judy and Wes is to create a more of a legacy character. We did need the twins. We did need Chad and Mindy because they're related to Randy Meeks. But we didn't need the other people. We didn't need Wes. We didn't need Olivia. We didn't need those characters. So I don't know why they were put in to the characters. I guess to just create this, you know, one of the killers is your friend. We have to create a lot of friends. But I do feel like there was just a lot of pointless characters and pointless scenes that nobody needed. And the pacing was really bad. The fact that we learn that Sam is Billy's daughter 15 to 20 minutes into the film is kind of not great, because first of all, you don't get time to get to really care about this character, and then all of a sudden you get this huge bombshell 20 minutes in before you can even like process the fact that we're in Woodsboro and there's been killers. You learn this. I feel like we should have learned that she's Billy's daughter either a scene or two before the climax of the movie, the end of the movie, or during. Like when they're doing their whole, you know, I'm going to tell you my motivation, and I'm going to tell you the reason why I've become the killer. It should be like, you know, when Richie is talking about the reason why he's doing what he's doing, he should be like, oh, and also, maybe it's because you're Billy's daughter. That's why you're in the middle of this. I feel like if they would have waited until that point, then it would have made it more like, oh my God, versus when you introduce it so early in the movie, I'm like, I don't care. Like, it's not that shocking when it's in the beginning of the movie. It'd be more shocking because the whole time through the movie, you'd be like, why was Tara targeted? Why is Sam the person that they want to, like, why is Sam the person that everybody's targeting? Why is this happening? Why is she hallucinating Billy? And then once you get to the end of the movie and you find out, oh, it's because she's his daughter, it's like, holy fucking shit. But when you find out so early, it just takes away from a lot. It really does. It really takes away from her character. And I don't blame Melissa Barrera for that. I blame the way it was written. And the pacing of the movie. I did not like that they made her hallucinate Billy in the first place, and that the hallucinations almost made Billy look like a good guy, which I don't like that either. But just the pacing was just really lacking for me. Another thing lacking was the lack of explanation, and maybe that's just like something that's more about me than anything else. It kind of explains why Dewey and Gail got divorced. It kind of does, and I can kind of guess why they got divorced, but it doesn't explain it enough to make me understand. Same thing with him getting asked to retire from being chief or sheriff, being sheriff. Like, it doesn't explain why. I want to know why. Why are they having the person that basically solved every single one of these murders retire? Like, is it because he's gotten hurt so many times that they're like, you know what, you need to cut it quits? Or is it because they think he's bad luck? Like, I need to know why. Also, with Sam's antipsychotics, I need to know why she's taking it. Now, granted, she's hallucinating Billy. Fine. Okay, but that doesn't necessarily mean that she has psychotic tendencies. Because there are people in the world that are children of serial killers that are fine. But I need to know, like, why she started taking them. When did she start hallucinating Billy? Did she start hallucinating Billy before? Was she, like, having hallucinations before she found out who her father was? Because she could be having hallucinations because she knows who her father is, and this could be a way of her brain being afraid that she's going to be just like him. You know, like, I just need more explanation of that. I need more. I need someone to, like, I want a backstory of, like, you know, after Sam found out who her father was, and she started getting into trouble. She started to show these mental illness tendencies and hallucinating Billy, and so she had to start taking antipsychotics. Like, I want to know why. And also, the fact that she's carrying them everywhere she goes, I don't understand why that is, because I don't know enough about that kind of medication, but I always thought, I don't know, like, most medications you have to take once or twice. So I don't know why she has to take it everywhere with her. I don't know if it's just to solidify the fact that she takes them, but I need more explanation. And the last thing that I really didn't like, okay, and we're about to get on a soapbox. So in this film, we see Vince 3 times. We see him once at the school, because apparently he dated pointless Olivia, once in a bar, and then once when he gets killed. Now, this character is absolutely pointless, and that is actually something that irritates me. The reason why, let me tell you why. It's because Vince is related to Stu. He's related to Stu Macher, but we only see him 3 times. Now explain this to me. Why is it that we have this pointless pink-haired Olivia person in most of the movie, but the person that's related to one of the very first Woodsboro killers is only in the movie 3 times? I don't understand that. I would think that the character that's related to Stu, sorry, that the character that's related to Stu would have more screen time, that he would have more purpose in the plot line, that he would actually move the story forward. I feel like he should have been in the movie more than Wes and Olivia should have. I'm joking. In the movie more than Wes and Olivia should have been, because he's related to Stu Macher. Like, Sam has a huge part because she's related to Billy Loomis. The Meeks twins have a huge part because they're related to Randy Meeks. So why is it that the person that's related to Stu Macher is only in the film 3 times? That doesn't make any sense to me. I feel like Vince should have had a bigger part. I feel like Vince should have been a huge focal point in this film because he's related to Stu. Either as a bad guy or as a good guy trying to not be like Stu. But he shouldn't have been in the film for 3 scenes, and he should not have been killed the way he was. I feel like it was very disrespectful and also very stupid. I just don't feel like they thought the character through, because to me, if I have a character in a film or a story that's related to a main character in a different film that built this whole series, probably gonna have him in the film a lot more. Richie's motive was also really stupid. Like, it was actually quite stupid. One, I hated the fact that he was one of the killers in the first place, but I also think that his motivation was stupid. Just because he didn't like the Stab 8 film, he wanted to redo it, make it better, so we're just gonna kill people to do that. That's stupid. Amber's motive kind of made sense. Her family moved into Stu Macher's house. She became obsessed with it, and kind of, it just, maybe she has some kind of, I don't know, something going on with her, but she became so obsessed that she wanted to continue the story because of that. Her motive made sense. His motive did not, and I thought it was dumb. And I hated the fact that they made Richie one of the killers, because we've seen that so many times before. Like I said before, we don't need to see it again. We just don't. We don't. So the movie is about 114 minutes, so it's kind of a long movie, not really. And it does mix the slasher whodunit with the elevated horror part. So in the first scene, we meet Jenna Ortega. She is one of the stars of the show, of the movie, I guess. And we have, you know, your obligatory, your normal, you know, person's home alone, Ghostface calls, stuff like that. So this is actually one of my favorite scenes in the entire movie, because I like how it starts. It starts with her talking to her friend on her phone, and the phone's ringing, and she doesn't want to answer it, but then eventually she does. It appears to be someone calling for their mom, like a boyfriend or a friend, and he says that his name is Charlie, which I thought was really fun, because that is an Easter egg. It's kind of a hint on who she's actually talking to, because if you've seen the other movies, in the 4th movie, one of the killer's name is Charlie. So it's kind of like, if you pay attention, it really, you know who it is without knowing who it is. Even though if you've watched the movies, you recognize the voice. she's talking to him, and he's just being nice. And then eventually he asks what her favorite scary movie is. She talks about elevated horror, so this is one of the moments where the movie is talking about how it's aware of what it is. And then, of course, Ghostface threatens her and scares her. And what I liked about this scene was that it introduces the modern into this movie. Scream is a really great movie, like, has a really great way of sticking with the time that it comes out and growing. Some movies don't grow the way Scream does, and it's grown with how the first movie was kind of like in the 90s, and then it kind of grew into how it's 2022. And one of the scary parts is when, you know, she locks the doors electronically through her phone, and it keeps opening and closing, like unlocking and locking and unlocking and locking. Which I have a problem with this. I don't like the electrical lock system, the automated, the one that you can get an app for, because I feel like people can hack into that really easily. I feel like if they try to break into your house, normally it takes more time, so you have more time to like run or get weapons, you know? But this, they can actually hack into it, but that's a whole different thing. And then, you know, Ghostface asks, you know, did you lock the door in time before I could get in? And then he comes out of nowhere and like, what I also like, it's very, I like it because it creates this fear of helplessness, and the reason is because of Jenna Ortega. Jenna Ortega is an amazing actress. I loved Tara, and a lot of the reason you are scared and feel worry is because of the way she's portraying it. Now, what makes this scene more interesting to me is that Tara is the very first person to ever survive an opening scene in Scream. In the first one, it was Casey and her boyfriend. The second one, it was Jada Pinkett Smith and her husband or boyfriend getting killed in the movie theater. The third one, it was Cotton Weary and his lady friend. And then the fourth movie was a lot of people in the opening scene, like Marnie and whatever, Marcy and Marnie, whatever their names were. The blonde chicks, they died. Tara is the very first character to ever survive. So I think that's what makes this scene stand out the most is, one, she's really great in it, and two, because she survives. And something I'll never understand is why people stay in big open spaces. It's like, okay, Ghostface is coming. It's the same thing happened with Casey. The same thing happened with Marcy and Marnie, I think her name is. You know, it's like they're staying in these big open spaces when it's like, why aren't you going up into a room and barricading yourself in? Or why aren't you trying to leave the house? Granted, you don't know where the killer is at the moment, but once you figure out where he's at, then why don't you, like, I don't know. I digress. Another one of my favorite scenes in this movie is actually my favorite kill in the whole movie, and that is Wes and Judy Hicks' deaths, which sounds awful, but it's true. They are my favorite kills. The reason is because when it comes to Judy Hicks, one, I don't like her character, but also Ghostface calls her and taunts her, and then when she's running up into the house to the house, he stabs her, and then Ghostface kills Judy in broad daylight, and people see it, and she gets murdered in broad daylight. But my favorite kill of the entire movie is Wes's, and the reason is because I think, in my opinion, it's one of the most brutal deaths, if not the most brutal death, because Ghostface is slowly pushing the knife into his jugular vein, and you would feel every second, and he would bleed out and bleed to death, and just how close they are. It's quite personal, and that's why it's one of my favorite scenes, because it's so simple. It's not a built-up death. It's not a built-up kill. It's just very simple kills. And another reason it's my favorite is because previously, in one of the scenes I am going to talk about, Mindy says, like, Wes expresses that he's worried about his mom and him because they're part of the legacy, and she says that nobody gives a shit about second movie or third movie or fourth movie killers or characters. So he was fine, and then the next scene is he literally dies. So I think that's also just kind of funny. I don't know why. Maybe that's screwed up with me. And then, of course, this brings me to a very iconic part of the movie, and that is Dewey's death. One of my favorite parts, it's a very simple part of the movie, is when, after he shoots Ghostface, and like they're fighting on the floor, and he says not today because he doesn't want to get stabbed for another time, and he shoots Ghostface, he realizes while they're going to the elevator, oh, like, we got to shoot him in the head because he's going to come back to life. And Sam is like, who the fuck cares? And the one moment before the elevator door closes and he says, I do. That moment, those 2 words are so telling, because it's almost like Dewey realizes that there is a very good chance that he's not going to come back from this. That he knows that there's a very good chance that he's probably going to die in this moment. And it's almost like he becomes resigned to it or accepts the fact that this might be the end of the line for him. And the way that David Arquette says the words, I do, is so heartfelt. Just those 2 syllables, those two words tell so much within just that few seconds. And that is the last thing that you hear Dewey say before he dies. And when he does get killed, because he gets stabbed in the back and then stabbed in the front, and when Ghostface says it's an honor, it's very, very, just like, it makes it more, it just hits you harder. And then when you look at the phone and you see that it's Gale calling him, it just makes it hurt even more, because it almost makes me wonder, if he didn't go with Sam to save Tara, would he end up back with Gale? Would they work it out? Would he be able to move forward? But unfortunately, and Gale knows that, like, she's probably calling him because she's aware that he's with Sam and there's a very good chance that he's not going to make it out. But just the way that David Arquette did it, and also, like, it said that Amber is the one that killed Dewey, and maybe someone needs to help me with this, because I find it hard to believe that Mikey Madison, she's like 5'2", and David Arquette is like 5'10". I find it very hard to believe that a little person killed a person his size that way. And maybe I'm wrong, maybe it is possible for someone that small to kill someone that way, but I just find it really hard to believe, because, like, it wasn't just a stab in the back, it was a stab in the front and then a yank up, and I just feel like someone that small wouldn't be strong enough. But I guess maybe if the knife was sharp enough, if, I don't know, the weight, I don't know, the psychosis, I don't know, but someone, if you can educate me on that, please do, because I could be absolutely wrong. I just feel like the film kind of, it could have been better, and I feel bad because I feel like if we didn't have the pandemic, if we weren't going through what we're going through with COVID, I feel like the movie would have been so much better. But since they were making it during a pandemic and they probably didn't have a lot of time and a lot of resources, it lacked a lot, which I understand that. But part of the reason I do love the movie is because it's Scream. Because of that reason. Part of the reason I want to own it and add it to my collection is because it's Scream. It's not my favorite film, and probably never will be, but it still has my heart and soul, and I am going to watch it a couple of times again, because I didn't like the 4th movie, and now I do. So maybe I just need to watch it a couple of times, but I really wish that the movie was better, and I kind of knew going into it. So my thoughts, I give the movie a solid 5 out of 10. The reason it's not lower is because I love the Scream movies. I'm very loyal to them. And if there's a 6th one, I don't think there should be, but I'll still go see it. There were some things that I did like about the movie. Granted, there were some things that I really didn't like, but there were some things that I did like. And I did like Jenna Ortega. I did like Melissa Barrera. I love that they brought Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox, and David Arquette back. I do really like that. I do like that they tried to create connections to the other characters. Some of the connections were really terrible, but I did like that they tried to do that. I also loved the fact that the writers that were on the other Scream films were part of this movie, because I don't think anybody else could have been. Now, I think the movie would have been better if Wes Craven was still alive, but unfortunately, you know, rest his soul, that's not the case. I love that this was a tribute to Wes, though. The person that played Wes probably felt a lot of pressure because he was the tribute to Wes. So, but I do wish that it was better. I loved the fact that I went and saw it with my boyfriend, though, and that he bought them for me for Christmas because he knew how excited I was. And he had never seen the Scream movies, but he still went to go with me, so that was really cool. Now, the way that I think it should have gone, I've got a couple thoughts. One, I talked about Vince and how he's related to Stu Macher. I think Vince and Amber should have been the killers and not Richie and Amber. Here's why. Vince is related to Stu Macher, and Amber was obsessed with the fact that she lived in Stu Macher's house. So to me, it would make more sense for her to find Vince on Reddit, for them to connect, and for Vince to want to continue Stu's legacy by being the killer. And Amber being obsessed with it and it just igniting her obsession to a really negative point. I feel like that would have made more sense than Richie. Two, I think it would have been really interesting if Sam was one of the killers. Now follow me down this rabbit hole. If it was Vince and Sam, I think that would make it more interesting. Now here's why. Could have been Vince because he could have been the one to attack Tara while Sam was wherever she's at the bowling alley. Now Sam is the killer because she's Billy's daughter, but she doesn't know that she is. So she's taking antipsychotics, right? Which means she has some kind of a psychosis. So what if she has a side of her that is like Billy, that is the psychotic tendency part where she is a killer, but her other part, the conscious part, doesn't know that she is, and that Billy is the hallucination of Billy isn't Billy, it's actually her mind trying to tell her that she's committing these crimes, but she just thinks that they're hallucinations and she's taking her antipsychotics. I think that could be interesting, because Sam, it would be really fun to see Sam, who's related to Billy, and Vince, who's related to Stu, to be the killers, and you wouldn't necessarily expect it because it would be new, it would be fresh, it would be exciting, but it would still kind of stay in the same vein of what the movie is without being too new and continue the storyline. Exactly what Mindy said. Now to me, Richie and Amber being the killers is too new. It doesn't really stay with the storyline or continue it. And so it's ridiculous. I think that if Vince and Sam were the killers, it would have continued the storyline, but in a new way, but not too new. I don't know, tell me your thoughts. I don't think Olivia needed to exist, and I don't think Wes and Judy needed to exist either. I don't think Judy needed to come back. Judy did not push this story forward. The only big significant part was her death and the fact that she was the sheriff. Like, that was it. But those are my thoughts. That's what I think, and that's how I think the movie should have gone. So I would love to hear your thoughts, though, and especially your thoughts on what my, idea of how I think the movie should have gone. So there you go. That is my review and my thoughts on the Scream film. I am not a professional movie critic or review person. I just wanted to share what I thought, my favorite scenes, things I liked, things I didn't like, my thoughts, and how I think the movie should have gone. And that's just kind of what I wanted to do. And if you enjoyed it, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Hit subscribe and hit the bell notification if you'd like, so you can be notified whenever I post. And I hope that you have a wonderful day and a beautiful night, and stay safe out there. And this is Kat signing off. Bye. Also, forgot to mention this. At the end of every video, I want to start doing song suggestions where I will post a song that I really like in the description down below that you can listen to. For me, music is one of the most universal languages and one of the best ways to kind of connect with people and kind of show who you are. And so I kind of wanted to start adding just random songs that I really like into the description below. So the song that I'm going to add in this video is called Poison by Freya Writings. I feel like it makes a lot of sense with this video, so go and check it out in the description down below. It's a really good song.